There's a place I have found in the shade on the ground, far from all worries and troubling sound. When I go there to be by myself, only me. No one can guess what I came there to see. There's a sun in the sky, there's a cloud drifting by. All kinds of birds make you wish you could fly. And in the distance I see someone waving at me. I hope that it's you, but who else could it be?
Welcome. It's Monday morning, Untold Radio Studios. Glad to see everybody starting to pop in the chat. Man, it's crazy how fast it can go from 5 people to 10 people to 15 people. But welcome, and we are grateful that you chose to stop by and have a coffee with us this morning. It's going to be a fun show. Got a lot to talk about. I've got some things set aside that I'm going to be pulling up, and things happening in news, weird news, science, kind of just interesting stuff. But also we're going to be talking about the great news of Legend Meets Science 2 reached its funding goal. And Doug's going to be joining us here in a little while. He's on a business call this morning, but when he's off of it, he's going to pop in. We're going to talk a little bit about how it's funded and how there is a way that y'all can still pop on and pre-order it. Get your name in the credits if you'd like. And some different levels of support that you can come in and be a part of it. But first, as I'm, going through my news items, I found a really interesting video that was released last night. And this is concerning, it's down in the Colombian Amazon rainforest. And it is I guess you would call it a canvas, or it's huge. I think it's 6 to 7 mile long rock wall cliff that's covered with drawings that are quite old. Ice Age rock art, actually. And this was originally discovered in 2016 or 2017, but there's a lot of haggling to be done with what who gets to work on it, how it's going to be, who it's shown to with the Colombian government. And they have recently, it took a couple years of them uncovering this because they had to lower the dirt levels to really expose the whole picture. But it's a pretty cool video, and I'm going to play it for everybody right now. I thought it was pretty interesting. Now let's pull it up here, and we'll get to it.
Archaeologists in the Colombian Amazon have found a wondrous canvas of sorts filled with light, or 13-kilometer-long expanse of rock painted with red pigment frequently used in art with all kinds of South American Ice Age animals, some of which are now extinct, including mastodons, giant sloths, and paleolamas. Other images include human and geometric patterns, human figurines. As said author Robinson, an archaeologist at the University of Exeter, said, really are incredible images produced by the early people to live in Amazonia. It likely took indigenous people hundreds to thousands of years to paint images, the earliest dating to about 12,600 to 11,800 years ago, just as the last ice age was winding down. During this period, the Amazon was a patchwork of different landscapes, including savannas, thorny scrub, and forest. After the Ice Age ended and temperatures rose, the Amazon transformed into the tropical rainforest we know today. Researchers are calling the finding remarkable because these paintings show what ancient creatures look like. There are other rock art drawings in the Amazon that depict wildlife, but those paintings are not as detailed. And besides finding odd skeleton, it's hard to know exactly what the animals look like, as the a combination of hunting and climate change. Scientists discovered the rock art after the 2016 peace treaty between the Colombian government and FARC, a rebel guerrilla group. In 2017 and 2018, the researchers analyzed the paintings and excavated the rock shelters below them, where they found remnants of palm and tree fruits, piranhas, alligators, snakes, frogs, capybara, and armadillos.
Pretty interesting. I thought it was pretty cool. I think it's really neat that they found the not only the rock art, but the meals that were eaten by those who made them 12,000 years ago. So pretty interesting stuff. Just looking to see what else I had here to talk about. Well, this was interesting. This here is a science news story where scientists recover an ancient woman's DNA from a 20,000-year-old pendant. Now, I know I hear people talking about DNA. I've been working with a couple different scientists from two different universities on an upcoming project that I have, but people's really their understanding of DNA and how it works, what you're capable of doing. I think it's a common idea that you can't test something once it's been out in the weather or once it hasn't been well preserved. And for the most part, that's true. But just as the technology of DNA is advancing so quickly, the capability to test the different methods they use. This is from Max Planck, the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology. And what they say is that an international research team has, for the first time, successfully isolated ancient human DNA from a Paleolithic artifact, a pierced deer tooth discovered in Denisova Cave in southern Siberia. To preserve the integrity of the artifact, they developed a new non-destructive method for isolating DNA from ancient bones and teeth. From the DNA retrieved, they were able to reconstruct a precise genomic profile of the woman who used or wore the pendant, as well as the deer from which the tooth was taken. Genetic dates obtained from the DNA from both the woman and the deer show that the pendant was made between 19 and 25,000 years ago. The tooth remains fully intact after analysis, providing testimony to the new era in ancient DNA research, in which it may become possible to directly identify the users of ornaments and tools produced in the deep past. So I thought that was pretty interesting too. I mean, I know off the cuff, like a lot of people, I just felt like you can't test DNA very well on stuff that's once it reaches a certain age or once it's been out in the weather and this and that. And I think there is some truth to that, especially if it's not, found in a cave or someplace that's isolated from, uh, weather and different things like that. But this was really interesting. 19 to 25,000 years old. They not only found a deer tooth with a hole that was used for a pendant, they isolated the genomic imprint of the woman who wore it and the deer that it came from. So that alone is in my mind is pretty interesting. Let's see, what else do we have here? This is a story that, if you heard me talk last week with Brian King Sharp, I had said one of my fears, and I'm not proud of this, but is snakes. I'm not a big snake fan, right? Luckily, I don't live down in the swamp. We have a few poisonous snakes in this area. Not many, not nearly as much as compared to down south. But this is a fella. Read this headline. He felt the slither of a venomous snake in the cockpit and then turned the plane around. This guy took off from Johannesburg, South Africa in a small plane. And of all the things that go wrong midair in the cockpit of a plane, finding a venomous snake under the pilot's seat must surely be one of the worst scenarios. So it goes on and says, the pilot says, I felt this little cold sensation underneath my shirt where my hip is situated, but basically where you have your love handles. When he looked down, the pilot was surprised to see a highly venomous Cape Cobra under his seat. So he felt the slithering stowaway as he was piloting a private flight from South Africa's Western Cape to the northeastern town Nelspruit on Monday. As I turned to my left and looked down, I could see the head of the snake receding back underneath my seat, he says, at which point there was a moment of stunned silence, to be brutally honest. He decided to turn the light aircraft around and made an emergency landing at the closest airport. I then informed my passengers of what was going on, but everybody remained calm. It says a Cape Cobra can kill someone in as little as an hour after they've been bitten. I was more afraid of what the snake might do. Luckily, it didn't strike anyone. Otherwise, that would have changed or complicated the whole situation. So when he first noticed this thing, he felt it underneath the edge of his shirt. And this thing didn't bite him. It receded its head back and went up back under the seat. So I can't even imagine. What that guy must have been experiencing at that point. But I will take a hard pass on a scenario like that. That to me, that would be one of the worst situations you could be in. Another interesting story. This is a feel-good story. My boys, my oldest son just graduated high school, and my youngest son is a year behind him. So he's going to be a senior this year. But I remember when they were 7th grade, right? I remember when they were, in that 12, 13-year-old range. This is a story about a kid who was on a school bus. And let's start from the beginning. A 7th grader in Michigan is being heralded as a hero after he safely stopped his school bus after the driver passed out. At 2:59 p.m. local time on Wednesday, a driver from Warren Consolidated Schools called the transportation base to let them know she was feeling dizzy and needed to pull the bus over. As she started to slow the bus down in preparation, she lost consciousness and the bus was still moving. Dylan Reeves, sitting about 5 rows back, sprung into action. He threw his backpack down, ran to the front of the bus, grabbed the steering wheel, and slowly applied the brakes. But before the bus could completely veer into oncoming traffic. Once the bus was stopped, Dylan yelled to his classmates, "Someone call 911 now." That is incredible. They go on to interview his dad, and his dad says, when he was little, I used to let him sit on my lap and kind of steer the car. And honestly, when I was a kid, my dad did the same thing, but you don't hear that as much these days. I think people are afraid to get pulled over for that. But what his dad really attributed this to is that for a couple years, his son had been driving a golf cart around their property and understood kind of the necessary action needed when something like this is happening. So great for this kid. I would agree, he's a hero. He's got that bus stopped and got 911 there. They treated the driver. She went into the hospital but was released after a couple days. Thought that was a great story to read. There's not enough good stories like that, right? I mean, the fact is the news these days, it's pretty hard to start a day reading the news when it's all just how much worse can it get, it feels like sometimes. But here's a funny story. And I think this is this dude, I could hang out with this guy. He's my kind of guy, okay? This was down in South Korea. This is a guy who ate a $120,000 banana in an art museum. Let's share this, although you can see this banana taped on the wall, right? Well, that banana taped on the wall was an installation in this museum, this art museum, by Italian artist Maurizio Cattelan. It says his signature work, a banana taped to a wall, fell prey to a basic impulse, the hunger it provoked in a South Korean college student. The art in question was called Comedian, is a frequently replaced duct-taped banana that is meant to evoke everything from Charlie Chaplin's slapstick comedy to the fruit status as an emblem of global trade. Now, I do have a couple questions here, but we'll get to them at the end of the article. It spoke to No Hein Su in simpler terms, reminding him that he had skipped breakfast that morning. So as his visit to Seoul's Liam Museum of Art stretched past noon late last week, No seized the yellow fruit and ate it, ignoring the alarmed cry of a museum staffer. It took No about a minute to yank the banana off there and eat it. And when he was done, he reattached the peel to its spot on the wall. He told the museum that he ate the art because he was hungry, according to Korean broadcasters KBS, which aired a video of his actions that was recorded by his friend. So, look, here's my question. One, I'm not sure what makes a banana taped to a wall considered art. I mean, if you are a world-renowned artist and this is what the best you got right now, I'd say aim a little higher. But also, how do they value it at $120,000, this art? I mean, they have to replace the banana every 2 days, it says. So during this exhibit, the artist removes the duct tape, puts a different banana up, tapes it to the wall. Does the banana he took down, what's that worth? I mean, is it only the banana taped to the wall that's worth 120 grand or what? But the fact that this kid showed up and just ate the banana, I love the fact that it kind of just points out, in my mind, the stupidity of considering this to be art and that it's valued at $120,000 in my mind is laughable. But, that's just that's my uneducated opinion. I'm not enough of an artist maybe to see the $120,000 value of a banana taped to the wall. But I love it when common sense wins. And I think this kid kind of brought common sense to the victory line here. Here's another story that I think kind of from the same standpoint I find interesting and funny. A $2.70 supermarket wine wins the gold medal at an international wine contest. The judges of the prestigious Gilbert El Gallard, I guess, international wine competition were duped into awarding this year's gold medal to a $2.70 supermarket wine they deemed exceptional. Ever wonder how the average person chooses wine at a supermarket? Well, it turns out having one or more medals plastered on the bottle can increase sales by up to 15%. So it's no wonder that wineries take wine tasting competitions very seriously. But this was a bottle that was purchased. I don't know if it was at Walmart or what supermarket, but it was for $2.70. And kind of as a mocking example, a winery submitted it into this competition, and it won as being deemed exceptional. So, don't if you're buying I don't suppose it was Boone's Hill. I mean, I remember when I was much younger, Boone's Farm, Strawberry Hill. I think we drank that. Well, I won't say when we drank it, but I will say it was before I shouldn't be drinking anything that had alcohol in it. But maybe there's some others that remember the Boone's Farm wines and strawberry. I think it was called Strawberry Hill. Maybe there were some other ones, some other flavors they made. But see what else I got here. So, this is an interesting article. You hear the conversation often about how long have humans been in North America? When did they first set foot? And, this was really kind of approached 50 years ago. In June 27th, 1973, there was a few scientists who were looking closely at this. It was published in Science News at that time. And they had deemed that humans had only been in North America for about 15,000 years, based on everything they had to look at. And this kind of opens that up a little bit. Obviously, it's since then that's changed, but early man in America takes a step backwards. Early Americans lived among the hunted lived among and hunted mammoth, camel, extinct horse, and bison as far back as 15,000 years. Now there is mounting evidence for a second breakthrough that will push the history of man in America back to 30,000 years and possibly further. So it's been 50 years since that 15,000 number, 15,000 year estimate was first thrown out. The update is the question of when humans first set foot in America is still hotly debated. Recent fossil and archaeological evidence suggests the first inhabitants arrived tens of thousands of years ago. For instance, human-like footprints in New Mexico date to 20,000 years ago. And stone tools found in a cave hint that humans resided in Mexico roughly 30,000 years ago. Now, some archaeologists argue that stones caked with mastodon bone residue that were found in California were tools used by humans or their close relatives around 130,000 years ago, although that claim remains controversial. Pinning down the timeline of human settlement could reveal how people spread across North and South America. So I've never heard of this before, this this controversial element, because I mean, there's a lot of difference between 30,000 years and possibly 130,000 years. But some archaeologists are arguing that stones caked with mastodon bone residue that were found in California were tools used by humans or their close relatives around 130,000 years ago. I guess I could maybe put some validity into that argument. I mean, if you've got stones that were used to grind bone and that bone residue is caked on those stones, I'm really struggling to come up with what other creature would have used those stones to do so. Other than humans or their close relatives. So, if those stones and that residue is dating 130,000 years ago, I'd say that's a pretty valid argument. But I don't know. Again, I'm not a professional on that, but I thought it was an interesting article based on we hear that talked about in our community of Sasquatch research as far as how long have humans been in certain different areas, Native American burial mounds that are anywhere from 8,000 to 12,000 years old have been discovered. Footprints that date to, 30,000 years ago have been discovered, or I should say 20,000 years ago. And stone tools that were obviously used by humans were found in Mexico, and they show that those are around 30,000 years ago. So pretty interesting stuff. And I think the more that people get out and discover things like this to at least look at and test, that conversation is probably just getting started. So yeah. So let's see here. What else do we got? I think I got one more article to talk about. Yeah, this was interesting. This is interesting because I've got some experience. I do a lot of coyote hunting and used to run a trap line. So I've seen a lot of bobcats in our area. Do a lot of archery hunting throughout upper North America when it comes to northern Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, the Dakotas, and northern Minnesota. I've a couple times in the UP of northern Michigan, but and then also in Saskatchewan and Manitoba. But this is an article that's talking about large predators pushing coyotes and bobcats near people and to their demise. Now, I don't. One thing a person's got to consider when you start reading these articles is the agenda, or is there anything that's trying to be put out there? But there is some pretty good data that's in the article, so that's why I'm going to share it, and it makes it interesting. Basically, large predators push coyotes and bobcats near people into their demise. When wild animals take refuge from predators by straying near people, the illusion of safety can be deadly. In the wilderness, mid-sized predators like coyotes have learned to fear larger carnivores like wolves and cougars, which will violently attack and kill those smaller carnivores. A new study finds that when those larger predators are around, the smaller ones will try to evade attack by moving into spaces shaped by people. But that ends up putting them at a much higher risk of getting killed by people. Now, this is a May 19th article, just a couple days old. The study is among the first to show that large cats and wolves shape the behavior of other predators outside the wilderness areas, says Laura Prug, a wildlife ecologist at the University of Washington in Seattle. When large carnivore populations plummeted from being hunted in vast stretches of North America, predators less threatening to humans flourished. Then, as large predators were reintroduced to the wild, including wolves in Yellowstone National Park, scientists started to notice deadly and mostly one-sided violence erupting between old and new meat-eating residents. So let's get to the data here. Well, one of the things that they had discovered, the aftermath of the violence looks like is something that Prug has witnessed firsthand during a field season in Alaska. The wildlife ecologist came across the remains of coyotes massacred by wolves. The wolves had buried the coyotes' heads in the snow. And she said it was pretty crazy scene that they had found. They knew it was wolves. They uncovered the tracks, the bite marks, things like that. Understandably, smaller predators will try to stay clear of their murderous kin. Yet now this works outside of wilderness areas. How this works outside of wilderness areas is unclear. Some animals will hide from danger in spaces shaped by people, be it farms or suburbs, in a phenomenon called the human shield effect. But other research indicates that mid-sized predators keep away from people when given the chance. So here's where it gets interesting. Animals are really scared of humans, explains Ty Levy, a wildlife ecologist at Oregon State University in Corvallis, who was not involved in the study that the other scientists did. In experiments where scientists played recordings of either growling from a wolf or human voices, smaller meat eaters like coyotes were more likely to avoid areas where you play recordings of people talking than the areas where they were playing the growling wolves. To see how smaller predators behave near human territory, Prug and her colleagues attached radio collars to 37 bobcats, 35 coyotes, as well as to 22 wolves and 60 cougars in 2 rural areas of Washington state. Now, this is interesting. This is a pretty good study because the numbers they're putting out there, 37 bobcats, 35 coyotes. That's going to represent the mid-sized predators. And then 22 wolves and 60 cougars in 2 rural areas of Washington state. These collars track the location of the animals every 4 hours for up to 2 years. One of the most impressive data sets on predator movement outside of a wilderness area to date. Tracking these animals revealed the coyotes and bobcats, the mid-sized predators, were twice as likely to spend time near ranches, roads, fields, and towns when larger carnivores like the wolves and they say when, it should be then large carnivores like the wolves and the mountain lions. But the animals traded one threat for another. People shot, trapped, or otherwise killed 25 of the bobcats and coyotes during the 2-year study period. Wolves and cougars lost 8. So there were 8 wolves and cougars killed, 25 bobcats and coyotes killed during the 2-year study period. Meaning people killed 3 times as many coyotes and bobcats than the large predators were doing. This may be because animals aren't good at reading danger signs from people in a modern world. A coyote is unlikely to make the correction that a person is behind a gun, but the smell and sound of wolves, which evolved alongside of coyotes for millennia, are hard to forget once you've been attacked. So even though 3 times as many are getting killed by humans, they take refuge where humans are from these predators, because over the course of millennia, they can't get it out of their system that at some point in their lives they've been attacked or threatened by the wolves. So yeah, that to me, that's an I love reading articles like that, because the data that is extracted is because there was a tremendous amount of effort put in to retrieve it. When you put radio collars on 37 bobcats and 35 coyotes, as well as 22 wolves and 60 cougars, and that to date is the largest predator movement outside of a wilderness area study, that is pretty impressive, because the data that they're extracting is fairly reliable. But anyways, yeah, I thought it was interesting. The bobcats and the coyotes, when hearing human recordings, run from them more than when they hear the wolf recordings, and yet they run to the areas inhabited by humans when threatened by wolves. And as a result, are 3 times more likely to die from a human than they are from a wolf. So it's just, that is crazy. But yeah, so that's kind of what I had there. Let me see what else I got here. We'll pull this over here, and hopefully Doug will be popping in here pretty soon. I don't know how long that call may end up going that he's on, but let's see here. Yeah, I hope everybody's doing well. Man, the weather's been great here. Spent some time on the western end of the state for 2 days this week, out in the Black Hills area. And originally we had plans to go to Montana, but as I was telling people earlier, last week, I kind of hit the lottery with Montana released their archery tag lottery. When you put in for a tag, some tags are very hard to draw, right? And you can put in year after year after year and still not get drawn for it. And one of these tags I have put in forever. And, a couple of years ago, I was like, man, I wish I could draw it, because I didn't know if I'd have the physical ability to hunt something like this. I drew an archery tag for white-tailed deer in Montana, which I kind of figured I would. But I also drew a moose tag in the first choice unit that I had put in for it. And I'm excited about that. I know a guide out there who's going to guide me. I'm trading him a pheasant hunting trip to South Dakota, guided with him and his buddies for it. But also, I drew a bighorn sheep tag. Never hunted bighorn sheep before. I've seen a lot of people who have with rifle. Never seen anybody hunt one with archery. And I'm still trying to wrap my head around how difficult that would be, considering where they typically reside. And it's probably a tag that I may it will go unfilled, perhaps. We'll see. But it is kind of a once in a lifetime tag. It's the same as in South Dakota applying for an elk tag in Custer State Park. Once you've drawn it, you'll never draw one again. So pretty excited about that. So I'm going to be heading out there in about the next week or so, week and a half. I'll be heading out there for a few days to kind of get used to these areas. Talk to one of the guides I'm going to be hunting with. I'm pretty excited, but we'll also maybe just do some camping and check out an area that I haven't been to before. So I'm excited about that. Let's see here. Let's pull this up. This is, Doug sent this to me last night. So at first they had a Kickstarter for $80,000, 30 days, and with 48 hours left, it was less than halfway there. It was like $38,000 on their way there. And in 48 hours, this thing was funded. So Legend Meets Science 2 is a reality. It's going to be completed. And I'm excited about it. But over at Hangar One Publishing, and I'll put, let me put the link to this in the chat. See if this comes out correctly. Boy, I don't know if that's going to be linkable or not. I didn't think it would be that long. Anyways, when Doug comes out, we'll put it back in if that's not working. But Hangar One Publishing, we've opened it back up. There is no deadline, but we're really encouraging people to pre-order it because there's some incentives to do so. One of the crazy things that I noticed was once it got funded, and like the day or two after it had expired, there were still people asking, "Hey, how can I still support this?" And so they've gone on to create this opportunity where for $10, you can, it's a pretty cool deal. You get your name in the credits. And to give an idea of, let's see here, what that would look like is right there. Okay. So, yeah, that's pretty cool. Also, there's some different levels here, and they've got it set up where you can do it in 4 interest-free installments or, some different ways to pay for whatever level you'd come in at. But this is the one I'm really encouraging people to do because this is going to be less than the cost that it's going to be to purchase part 1 and part 2 of Legend Meets Science 2 when it's out. So $30, you can pre-order your copies of it. It's a great idea. I think it's just a great idea to jump on it and do that. But there's also still some opportunities where you can get those, pre-order those copies, but also get copies of many of the books that are in Hangar One's library of authors. And you can see here at the different levels, you get not only all that, not only the Legend Meets Science 2, Part 1, Part 2, you get the poster, you get many of the books in the library, all of them Sasquatch related. Then it comes into a different level here where you get all of the books in the library, including the one I just wrote and came out a few weeks back, The Pine Island Incident. An insider access bundle where you can get involved. You get the hat, t-shirt, some different models of the Bigfoot Museum, all the copies of the books, the Legend Meets Science library. And then you can come in and be an executive producer. Come in at that level. But yeah, there's a lot of neat stuff out there. We've still got the level available where you get the custom-made e-bike, which on its own is, I believe, I know 2 people have ordered these and had them custom-made by Doug. Front and rear cameras, digital monitor on the handlebars, the state-of-the-art way that these things are built. They're over $6,000-7,000, I believe, is what my friend Todd paid for one of them. So you get that, the whole library. You get to, and at this level, you get to be in the documentary, not your name on it. You get to be in it. So that's pretty cool too. But when Doug pops on, we can talk some more about that. And I say when, but I don't want to say if. Because I just threw it out to him last night. He says, we're going to talk about how Legend Meets Science 2 is funded. And he said, I'm in. He says, I got a phone call first, and then when I'm off it, I'll be on. But you know how those calls go. Joe from Western New York Bigfoot says, if he had 10 grand, he would do it. I think I would too. I mean, just to be in the documentary, that would be pretty cool. Yeah, so those are the news items that I had and kind of stories I had to talk about today. Something else we could mention is a friend of mine who's in the chat, Nikki from Hairy Man Hoaxes and Hoodwinks, had an interesting show last night. We've been talking about on Pine Island Research for a while. We talked about here on Coffee Time of where AI is kind of not only bringing culture and, how it's being used in business, things like that, but also some of the challenges it may present at some point when it comes to just basically bringing I guess I'm trying to figure out the best way to put this. Maybe the fiction part of some of the pictures and the videos that you see created. This was an example that she had on her show of many of what you guys have been seeing lately in a lot of the Sasquatch Bigfoot related groups that are on Facebook. People saying, hey, I found this picture from the 1800s or whatever, and it's an AI picture, and they all started having the same flavor, right? It's like 4 or 5 different ones that have came out just over the last week and a half, it seems like. And so Nikki dove into that and took a little bit closer look and realized these are all kind of coming from the same source. It's the same place that's been creating these. And, let's be honest. I mean, you can, those who are at least trying to be cautiously aware of what they stick their faith in, they've been seeing these pictures and saying, they don't, you can tell it's AI. But it brought up an interesting idea of how is this going to go? I mean, this is one source that was doing it, and they're interesting pictures. And there are some that are kind of being fooled by it, but I think that they'd be easily fooled by just about any picture. when you look at what they're really applying to the whole vetting of what they put their faith in. But what happens when that one source turns into 1,000 sources that are creating pictures and videos like that? And that's all you see compared to real data that's being produced in research. It's gonna, the landscape's gonna change a little bit when it comes to that. And she did a good job pointing that out. Hairy Man Hoaxes and Hoodwinks. You can find her on YouTube and check out her show from last night. And looks like Doug is here. I can hear him clear
You
his
can hear
voice.
me? Oh, God.
And
Had a heck of a morning. Not only did I wake up at 9 o'clock today, which is kind of late for me, sick from apparently all the smoke in the air.
yeah,
Just congested and a headache. I decided today would be a good time to tear my studio apart, to rearrange it so I have a little more room for production gear. And of course, then all of a sudden I go, oh yeah, I was going to go and talk with Jeff a little bit. So anyhow, I've got all my stuff torn apart.
what do you think of all this smoke in the air here? Man, it is really
nuts. It's nuts.
We usually, it seems like the last couple of years we've experienced that a little bit, but it's usually later in the summer. And so for it to be happening this early.
But Jeff, let's go back to our childhood and to when we were younger. This never happened.
Yeah, it really
I don't
didn't.
remember one time ever in my whole childhood or growing up or even in my, when I was younger, blah, 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 up until probably my maybe late 50s that this smoke from Canada thing has been a deal. And I always, in my brain, in my conspiracy brain, I keep thinking people are lighting these fires.
First of all, I mean, the density of it this year, the darkness of the haze. I mean, at 6 o'clock at night, it's starting to feel like it's 8:30 and the sun's getting ready to go down. It is crazy how dim it's getting. And there's no clouds in the sky yesterday. I mean, it was a sunny day, and that haze, it just depends on how it's wafting in or the wind currents and stuff. But one thing I noticed differently this year about it, and maybe you've noticed it before, but the smell of it is different. In the past, and this is something that you started seeing couple, on the live cameras that you had out, was, remember, we were seeing that ash moving by.
There were fires that time too.
And that was confusing because sometimes when you'd see ash just kind of drifting and moving in front of a camera. But this year, one of the things I've noticed is the smell. It smells like burning plastic or garbage. It doesn't smell like a forest fire.
Yeah, I kind of know what you mean. Yeah.
I mean, in the past, you kind of get a little dreary after a few days of it, of just the smoke in the air. But to me, it's the smell of it's getting nauseating almost when you're outside.
It's like homes being burnt.
Yeah.
Like all their contents.
Yeah, it doesn't really seem like that natural wood burning smell. But
today we're supposed to have blue skies, and I look out and it's just gray from smoke.
Yeah. It's depressing because it looks, and it's funny how it really changes throughout the day depending on where that wind and how it's bringing it in. I mean, you get a decent southwest wind or something like that, it can actually be a pretty pleasant day, and the next day it looks like it's going to start storming at any moment, and there's no clouds in the sky because that wind is coming out of the north. But
yesterday it wasn't too bad, but today it's really bad, like really super bad.
And from what I understand, when we've had this in the past, there were fires in Canada in very specific areas that were affecting certain states. But I have been hearing complaints from people who are out east. I've been hearing complaints from people who are out west, and obviously we're experiencing it here in the middle. So, I mean, it makes me wonder how many sources are out there that are really burning right now. It seems to be more than what people want to talk about. But
yeah. Give me 1 second here. I'm going to pull something up. I thought we could do some, or I could pull some trivia on you today.
oh
A
yeah,
little bit. Just thought it'd be fun. I don't think me and you have never screwed around with any trivia, have we?
no, I watch you and Alex, and a lot of times you kind of render him speechless. It leaves me the impression that,
Oh,
like
man.
I've said in the past, if I was on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire and I was going for the $1 million thing, you're the guy I'm going to phone if I don't know the answer.
Well, that's good. Let's see here. All right, so I'm going to ask you questions, and people in chat can chime in, of course. But these questions are directed at Jeff, so you can help him out if you want. You can help him out. Feel free, because he may need it, or he may not.
I may need it. I think it's likely that I'll need it, but let's see.
So I'm going to jump all over. I'm going to do current stuff. I'm going to do way back. Okay, first one. And this one, you only have to get it within 20% of accuracy. That's it. 20%.
Okay.
So how many people in the U.S., and you can't cheat, Jeff.
I'm not cheating. And no Googling. I'll hold my hands up.
Okay, then look into the camera. So how many people a year are pass away from riding in elevators and escalators every year?
I got to get within 20%.
I'll be really fair. You just got to be.
I'd say 225.
No, well, you're way too high, but it's 30 people per year in the U.S. You're probably right on a global scale.
I was just thinking on an escalator pass away, would it have to be because of what the escalator did, or could they have randomly had a heart attack while they were on it?
I have a feeling these are all dumb ways to do stupid things, if you know what I mean. Okay. So, what city had roads paved of wood? What city had roads paved of wood? And it can be anywhere in the world.
Roads paved with wood.
Yeah.
I would say Amsterdam.
No, you're not too far off. London. And that's where
I was guessing Amsterdam just because they had shoes made of wood. Why wouldn't they make their roads made of wood?
Yeah, no, that's true. I actually, I was in Holland, and I was staying at some people's houses. First morning I wake up because it was dark when I got there. And I wake up in the morning, I'm eating breakfast, looking out the window. And I literally see some people, including men, wearing wooden shoes walking to work. And I thought, wow, they're actually wearing these damn things.
Yeah.
No, they were really wearing them. I mean, it wasn't just like one guy. It was, I probably saw 10 people wearing wooden shoes.
My adopted family, my mother was Dutch, and we had several pair of wooden shoes from Holland in our, she'd have sitting on a counter or whatever and I remember one time trying a pair of them on, and I can tell you, they are not comfortable at all.
Oh, jeez. Anyhow, to get back to this wood streets, so that saying, go walk the plank, came from like barkeepers that would want to, get rid of a patron. They'd say, go walk the plank, meaning go home. Walk home. So anyhow, all right, enough of that. So you're staring back.
I would have guessed it came from pirates.
Well, that's what everybody's associated with is pirates, but it had nothing to do with pirates. It had to do with bars.
Interesting.
All right. So the invention of bicycles, right? We're going to talk about this. Why were they invented?
Would have had something to do with something horses couldn't do, area they couldn't get to, or they were. Oh, let me think here. They were invented because they wouldn't allow horses in certain areas of towns, maybe?
No, and I can only go on what I read.
Sure.
It was apparently invented fundamentally for the early women's liberation movement.
Really?
Bicycles promise freedom to women who were long accustomed to relying on men for transportation. And it's also the reason that these long, skirts fell out of grace, the corsets went away. It was all because of the bike.
Interesting.
Yeah. So there you go. So what's the deepest? How deep was the deepest dive done by a scuba diver? The deepest dive. And what year?
Dive
And what year? Yeah.
So it wouldn't be in a submarine. It'd be in a high pressure suit.
Yeah, with a tank. Breathing oxygen.
Wow. I have no clue, really, to be honest with you, because I can't recall of anything, but I'm going to take a guess. I'll say, boy, that pressure would be high. I'll say 350 feet.
1,990 feet.
God, I can't believe they could handle that much pressure.
I know, it's kind of nuts.
I mean, they're probably wearing a helmet that handles the pressure, but even on your body and chest and stuff, that would.
Well, here's the deal. It took him 15. Apparently, the descent only took 15 minutes, but to get back, it took him 13 hours.
Yeah. You've been keeping up with the scientists who just spent the most time living underwater down off of Florida there?
No, I did hear something about it, though.
They're doing updates every day. I don't know if he's like at day 73 or something like this, but just 2 days ago or 3 days ago, he kind of surpassed the longest. So he's down deep enough that you would have to depressurize if you were to surface. So it's trying to see what kind of effects a human could endure over a long period of time being at that depth.
Okay, well, how deep is he?
I didn't read all of that in the article, but I'll have to go back and check it out.
And
it's got to be over 100 feet.
Oh, okay.
I would think.
There's actually a hotel off the Keys. I think it's off Key Largo. It's an underwater hotel that you can rent. And it's basically you have to swim to it, and then you dive deep, and you pop up into this air-filled hotel room.
Wow.
And I think there's a number of them off somewhere off Key Largo, I believe, near the Coral Reef.
Would you stay in a room like that?
Yeah, I actually contemplated, which is why I know about it.
Yeah.
I studied it and almost talked somebody into doing it with me.
I mean, you think about how Alex was saying he wanted to stay in the Star Wars room, but I think that would be cool to be in an underwater hotel room.
Yeah. I learned scuba diving because I was going to go on an expedition to recover the Doolittle bombers in China with the actual Doolittle raiders that were surviving. And so I was going to be the camera guy for that dive, but I guess the water there is really murky, the Yellow Sea. Super murky. Okay, anyway, let's move on. Let's see. I gotta figure out something that would be good. Is there a rodent that collects plants and dries them in the sun to store them for the winter. Actually dries them in the sun. And first off, is there such a rodent? And then what's the name of it?
Well, I'd say there is a rodent that does it. I've got to try to guess which one it would be. I would say stores. Oh boy, I would guess a weasel. Is it a larger one or a smaller one?
Yeah, well, it's the pica, which is similar looking to they're really cute, super cute. More of a woodchucky type animal.
Oh, okay.
You know, they live in the mountains of like Tibet and
I was gonna say it'd have to be something that needs to store it, for dormant for a long
winter,
dormant season.
Yep. But isn't that, I just think it's cool that this thing would, this creature would figure out how to dry them.
Yeah.
So they don't get moldy and then store them. And it's so cool.
Resist the urge to eat it while it's drying.
It's planning,
Yeah.
Beavers plan too. I mean, they'll drag a bunch of aspen down to the bottom of the pond.
Yeah, that's one of the most fascinating things about beavers is as it's sitting there chewing a tree down, it's not just doing this spontaneously because it feels like chewing. It's got a master plan that involves many, many, many steps, and this is just the beginning of it. I mean, it has that vision in its head as it's doing that. It's crazy.
Yeah, that really is. There's so many more, things we're going to learn in the next year about animals. Okay. What planet is the closest planet to all other planets? Not only us, but all the other planets too. It's in our solar system, so you've got a pretty good chance of guessing it. What planet is closest to all of the other planets?
I'd say Jupiter.
Anybody else want to guess in chat here?
Gotta be something in the middle, right?
So we've got some pretty good guesses in chat, but I don't know. I'm like Larry David, man. I don't trust you. You could be Googling.
Joe says it's Uranus.
Yeah. I love that. Okay. It's Mercury.
Huh.
So apparently Mercury is, on average, is closest. As you know, all the planets are moving around. And to me, once again, I'm going to state this in case anybody has not heard this. Not only is our planet rotating around the sun, right? All the other planets are, but we're sailing at 454,000 miles an hour through the Milky Way, this group of planets.
Yeah.
In a
the
spiral
whole solar
fashion.
system is traveling.
Yeah, the whole solar system is traveling at 454,000 miles an hour into uncharted territory because it takes 1 million years for the solar system to make its way around the Milky Way.
It's hard for me to wrap my head around.
Yeah. So it isn't bad enough we're going, it is 30,000 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Rotating in one way, but we're going forward at 454,000. And yet me and you are sitting here sipping our coffee.
I know. I read an article this morning and what's crazy is what you're talking about. There's still things we're trying to figure out and learn within our own solar system. And yet you look at the scope of knowledge that you're developing to understand that the solar system is moving at that speed is crazy. I read an article on Saturn saying that scientists, this was released yesterday or the day before, scientists discovered, have come to an agreement that the rings of Saturn are approximately 400 million years old, which blows them away because the planet is way older than that. So they're saying something happened on that planet for those rings to actually come and develop.
Yeah. So those rings are so bizarre. They really are, because, I've looked at them with my own telescope, and I've got a refracting telescope that's pretty good. It gathers a lot of light. It's got a huge lens. It's about a foot wide. I mean, you can see them, but it just doesn't look real. It's just so weird. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what? Yeah, I'd be open-minded if we've been lied to about everything.
Yeah. You
I'd be
read
open-minded.
stories about how there's a mothership hiding behind this
Oh,
planet
God.
from us. And I'm thinking, how are we supposed to know anything about Saturn's rings and learn this kind of stuff if we can't even tell if there's actually a mothership hiding behind a planet? So,
Yeah, no, because I would imagine most people, if they hadn't heard that, think that we're just, the solar system is just stuck in one spot and we're all rotating around the sun. That's what most people think. If you go and interview 100 people, about 100 people will tell you, yeah, we're just stationary and we're rotating around the sun. Hardly anybody knows that we're traveling through the Milky Way galaxy at 500K an hour.
the sun and everything.
Yeah, the sun too.
We're
It's just nuts, and it's
a
just the
dimple
sun.
on a golf ball.
Yeah, we're just taking along the sun as it travels through the Milky Way. So that's what's weird, is that it's all uncharted territory.
Yeah.
How is that journey of the sun affected what's happened on Earth? Because what if we go through some kind of crazy asteroid belt?
And also, I think it throws into perspective, because I remember I used to read in these science news articles about how scientists are watching two systems basically colliding and things like that. And I'm thinking, wait a minute here. I get asteroids moving and things like that, but whole systems colliding seem kind of weird. But now that you understand that our solar system's moving 458,000 miles an hour, kind of makes sense.
Yeah. But what's interesting? The Milky Way is also moving.
Yeah.
So how fast are we really going? It's freaky. It's so freaky. And yet, like I said, the dichotomy is that we're sitting here drinking coffee, sipping it. I remember once I was flying over the Arctic Circle, and I was with my buddy who'd never gone up there. And I said to him, Dan, do you realize we're sitting here eating chocolate pudding over the Arctic Circle today? And he looked at me and he goes, oh my God, that's a visual. I'm never going to forget that. So every time I talk to him, he reminds me of that thing. That's a goofy thing I said, but it was a memory marker. We're eating chocolate pudding or butterscotch pudding over the Arctic. Yeah, that was funny. Okay, anyhow. So what was I don't want to talk about snow, but what was the tallest snowman ever built? Biggest snowman.
Boy, that's a good one.
And this is something
I'll go for. Boy, you'd have to be able to lift what you rolled.
Yes, it's an interesting puzzle.
Okay, I do want to ask: are we talking about conventional style snowmen, meaning they're balls on top of each other rather than just carved out of something?
I'm not saying anything.
Okay, well, assuming that they're balls that are rolled and then they'd have to be lifted, I would say that it couldn't have been more than 40 foot tall.
That's probably a pretty good guess, because the one that was built in 2008 was 122 feet tall, plus 7 inches, but it was very non-traditional. It was more of a cone shaped.
Yeah.
It looked like a Hershey's Kiss, kind of, or a suppository. And then they put, of course, hat and eyes in the mouth and, pine trees for the arms. They used whole pine trees for the arms.
Yeah, I would think that if you were going to roll 3 balls and place them big, medium, small on top of each other, that you start getting over 40 foot tall, the size of the balls you're rolling, I don't know how you'd lift them. You'd have to carve it out of something rather than roll the snow and
Okay. All right. So we now have a mind-blowing fact that the Bigfoot Atheist Inquiry has come up with. He says, and I'm not confirming this, but I take him at his word. He said the Milky Way is traveling at 1 million?
Yeah,
1,342,162 miles an hour. Oh my God. And yet we're sitting here. So how fast are we really going if all this is, what kind of crazy motion are we in?
Well, then you think about Earth's atmosphere and gravity and how that protects us from feeling certain things, but then the galaxy itself, how does it not just come apart traveling that fast? You'd almost have to have some type of protective barrier around that to hold it intact, right, going that fast. But
Okay, so here's my question to the Bigfoot atheist. How fast is the universe traveling? That's something I don't think scientists know or can guess at. So that's probably going too.
Or is it?
Exactly. Or there are multiple universes and they're traveling and they're in some other thing that's traveling. Yeah. So the fact that we can wake up in the morning in our soft, fluffy beds, traveling at these incredible speeds through uncharted territory is so bizarre.
When you start drawing these pictures, Doug, and you realize the expansiveness of space that we're talking about, it makes it even more kind of hard to digest how any person could stand outside at 3 a.m. and look up at the sky and say, there's no way there's no other intelligent life around besides us.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, boy.
That's nuts.
When you look at how smart we are and how advanced we are, in the end, in the big picture, we might be the fruit fly landing on the banana here, right? I mean,
oh my God. Okay, so back to snowman. I once on Thanksgiving with my family, we just set out to build a giant snowman. It didn't really start that way. My nephew was out and I saw he had rolled this giant snowball in the backyard, right? And I thought, ooh, okay, let's roll another one. So everybody got dressed and everybody went out and we all started doing it. Ours got up to about 25 foot with balls. And we made the front page of the newspaper.
Wow.
So
that's pretty big.
25 feet, yeah. Front page. And I still have that clipping with the snowman in my backyard.
How long ago was that?
Oh my God, that goes back into the probably 83.
I was to say, it was back when you actually had time to go out and roll a snow.
Yeah, I wasn't involved in too much then. I had, what was I doing back in those days? I was just I had my 2 kids, starting my family, but I had invented that EPDM polymer sponge. And I was making a good living off of that back then. And my neighbors thought I was a drug dealer.
The boys must have been pretty young.
Well, that was Josh and Alyssa.
Oh, okay.
And my oldest son.
I would say that would have been before Blaine and Alex.
Yeah. My oldest son is like 45.
Yeah.
He's a doctor or a PhD.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to call him today because I've got some audio questions for him. He's great to call because you can ask him all these, audio questions. And by the way, he has been given 8,500 Bigfoot recordings.
Interesting.
Yeah. So when I have a question, he's a good go-to. Hopefully he'll end up in Legitimate Science, God forbid. By the way, I was going to mention, things have not changed much because, I'm having just as much trouble now to convince technology companies to be involved as I did back in 2000 on the topic.
Yeah.
The needle hasn't really moved that much.
Are you running into the same challenges that presented as far as getting the resources, the studio resources, camera crews, things like that, everything kind of froze up there for 3 years back. Is that
Yeah.
you starting to see more accessibility to that? Or is it
Not-
still rubber banded effect of
yeah,
trying to
there's
catch
still
up from all that?
yeah, there's still a lot of rubber banding going on. It's not over yet.
Hmm.
And I hope to God another one doesn't come our way when we, we're not bringing up any words.
I
Okay,
don't
let's
even
move
want to
on.
talk about one of the articles I saw about
Yeah,
they're projecting.
let's move on.
So.
Okay. So, how long can a bowhead whale live? Bowhead whale.
Well,
It's really interesting.
that would be interesting because we've talked about the Greenland shark and how that can live up to 450, 500 years. I think they deemed that the oldest living thing. So I'm going to say it can't be that old, but let's say 300 years.
You're pretty close, 200. And here's how they know. They found an ancient stone point that had been discovered under their skin from failed hunting attempts in prior centuries.
Wow.
Gosh, there you go.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So basically a harpoon head, so
Yeah.
to speak,
Yeah.
lodged in its
Yeah.
body.
From prior centuries.
Hmm.
So, okay. All right. What's the world's smallest mammal? It's pretty black and white. What's the world's smallest mammal? No, steer forward, Jeff.
I'm not going to look at chat. Actually, I've got
No,
it.
you look at chat. I said you can. That could be your lifeline.
Oh,
but
I
not
thought
on
you were saying
Google.
that because somebody was saying the right answer.
No,
in
you
chat.
can look at chat all you want.
Okay, well,
Because how do you know they're telling you the truth?
I
I would hope
they probably
throw
aren't.
you off.
Most of them in chat are probably trying to trip.
I would
me up
hope
on
they're
purpose.
trying to throw you off. Yeah.
I'm gonna go with it's got to be something. God, I'm trying to think of. First of all, we got to figure everything that's basically smaller than a mouse. Man, it's got to be. I would think it'd have to be something that is underground. Otherwise, they just get wiped out.
Something would step on them.
Well, or they do. I mean, how fast can something that big run? I mean, well, I shouldn't say that because mice are pretty damn quick.
Okay.
But,
so
I don't
right.
know.
So
I
it's
have no clue.
It's the bumblebee bat.
The bumblebee bat.
Yes,
Okay.
it's only 1.14 to 1.3 inches long. It's the tiniest known mammal in the world. And they seldom stray past 3/4 of a mile from their home cave.
That is interesting. I mean, that's way smaller than most hummingbirds.
Yeah, isn't that cool? So remember, when you comb your hair, you may have some bumblebee bats hiding in there.
Yeah. Have
Could
you
happen.
seen many bats so far this year?
I haven't seen one.
We saw Joni was out in the yard while I was mowing, and I heard her screaming and running. She was out trying to cut a couple branches off this one tree, and as I'm watching her run, I seen a bat like swoop down at her. And this thing was one of the bigger bats. When we don't get big bats in our area up here, at least I haven't seen really big ones. This thing probably had a wingspan about 6-7 inches.
Jeez. You know, the best place to view bats, if you're really a bat fan, is go to Mackinac Island. At sunset, millions of bats come out of there.
Wow.
Out of the limestone caves that surround the island and, that are on the island. And there are bats swooping. And people, it's so fun to go out at sunset when people are walking, because everybody walks in Mackinac Island. There's no cars allowed.
Yeah.
So you go there and you're walking, everybody's like, oh, it's so cute. All these birds are swooping at me. And I love going
Until
up
they
to people
find out.
going, those are bats.
When we were kids, when we'd go camping at night, right before it was dark, when it was just starting to get twilight, you could put a tennis ball in like a tube sock and throw it up in the air, and bats would swarm around it. It was really kind of pretty interesting. And
Oh my God. I could
seemed
tell
like anytime you'd throw something in the air, the bats
Yeah.
would come around it.
Yeah, because they're using sonar, but there's a way to catch bats, but I'm not gonna say it.
Yeah.
You can catch them almost perfectly in midair instantly, and it works every time, but I'm not gonna say it.
You can tell me after we're off the air.
Yeah,
We don't want to get anybody violating
could be
some
construed as
federal
not so nice.
protection or something.
But we used to do it when we were kids, and we wouldn't hurt them, but we'd let them go. But it does work. Okay. Blah blah blah. What do we got here? Let's see. All right. There is a underwater mammal that sleeps in a very weird way. And can you name that mammal? It sleeps in a very weird way. Underwater mammal, which obviously includes, whales and
Whales, dolphins.
yeah, includes all of the above. But which one sleeps in a really weird way, or super weird?
Got to be something that sleeps upside down.
Anybody in chat want to guess? Sleeps in a weird way. All right, I'm just gonna say.
I don't know what it would be.
It's a dolphin. They sleep with one eye open.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is that where the expression kind of came from? Or
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, dolphins sleep with one eye open.
Interesting.
Yep. Can you imagine that?
Never heard that before. You think that?
Yeah,
would be
going to
talked
bed and you
about
close
more.
one eye. Yeah. So apparently, part of their brain stays alert.
Huh.
So yeah, it's interesting. All right. I want to talk about the first vacuum cleaner. Can you describe the first vacuum cleaner, Jeff?
It would have been non-electrical. It probably operated similar to but it had to have been something you could push air out without it moving out one direction. But then when you pull it out, like an accordion expanding, it would create a vacuum and suck stuff in. So, but I don't know what time period that would have been, but it would have had to have been something that operates on the expansion, accordion style expansion, creating a vacuum and pulling something in.
So the first vacuum was invented like in the 1800s. It was so big it was hauled by a horse-drawn carriage.
No,
and they would go from house to house, right? And they would vacuum people's homes. It was gas powered. Okay.
Really? It was gas powered?
Yeah, gas powered. And the suction that would pull the dirt and debris would go into this giant glass container. So onlookers could see the dirt and debris going in this glass container, and they would come around and people would gather around and gawk. So
that's how they did
all
business.
Your neighbors sitting there watching the dirt get sucked out of your house. And that would be the advertisement to obviously go to the, to get people to sign up for this.
Would have been an easy sell. You knock on somebody's door and say, you want us to get the dirt out of your house? Come out and look. This is what we sucked out of the neighbor's house.
Oh, yeah. Well, they would come to gawk at the filth coming out of their neighbors' homes. Yeah. Oh, my God. The things that we learn on Untold Radio Network. Right. So where was the first, or why, or where was the first drive-through restaurant developed? So where and why? And
so it
where,
was
why, and
taking
who?
some time for them to get popularized, and it was popular in the late 40s, early 50s. So I'd say it'd have to be probably in the 20s or 30s.
Well, here's the best part about my trivia. I don't know the exact year, but it happened at Fort, and I'm not really sure how to pronounce this, Huchaka military installation. In military rules, soldiers were forbidden to wearing their military uniforms in public.
Yeah.
Okay. So there was a McDonald's. And it was in this, let's see, Sierra Vista, Arizona. Okay. And so this guy at McDonald's thought, oh, if we cut a hole, they can, they can't come in the restaurant wearing their uniform, but we can serve them through this window. So the solution, obviously, to cut a hole in the wall allowed military members to come and pick up their orders without stepping out of their cars, and the convenience and simplicity of this great idea caught on. And today, that's all we seem to do.
It must have caught on and really moved fast because that if it's McDonald's, I'm trying to remember. I watched the documentary on the birth of McDonald's.
Basically. Yeah, I did too.
It was in the 50s, wasn't it?
Yeah, I believe
so.
Yes, in the 50s. So I would imagine this was late 50s or mid 50s.
Yeah, and then you look at, I don't know if this is included or excluded in a drive-through, but you've got, like the car hop style. Night before last, I watched American Graffiti with my two boys. They'd never seen it before. That was 1963.
Yeah.
So I would say that in the late 50s, there were certainly car hops where you'd pull in and order out through a microphone and they'd bring it out, right? So it must have, from when that started in the 50s to where it really got popular all over the country, must have happened just in a couple of years, I would say.
Somebody in chat can look it up, but the guy that came up with the solution was just a restaurant. He was he was a manager there. His name was David Rich. He's the one that cut the hole in the wall.
Yeah.
I love it. I mean, think about it. They would have to go home, switch into civilian clothes and go eat, or it's kind of weird that, we wouldn't allow them in
My
public.
son's been experiencing that. I mean, if you're in the military, even when I was in the military in the late 80s, I mean, you could go into a restaurant, go to the mall, whatever. But my son was in a JROTC, Marine JROTC program at the school. And because they aren't recognized military uniforms, they aren't allowed to go into like gas stations and public places because they're worried that these young kids, who most of them are 18 or under, would have somebody who's not familiar with JROTC be, accusing them of stolen valor, things like that. Like, you're just trying to dress up. They don't really get this is an actual organization. So they aren't allowed to wear their uniforms inside, but normal full-time military personnel are.
What's interesting, a couple of things that's interesting, how you pronounce that dang town. Hairy Man Hoaxes and Hoodwinks says you pronounce it Huachuca. I think. I probably butchered that one too. Is it just Huachuca?
Huachuca.
I think it's Huachuca, yeah. That's a strange name, but whatever. It's obviously a native name. Let's see here. Okay, so people always say, I'm sweating like a pig. We hear that all the time. Oh, I'm sweating like a pig. Pigs don't sweat. They don't have any sweat glands.
Yeah, that's I could see that.
They're born without sweat glands. They have none. So where in the world did that saying come from? If pigs don't sweat, then why is that stuck all these years? I'm sweating like a pig.
Maybe just the connotation of the nervousness a pig would have going to the slaughterhouse or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
I don't know. That's just trivia. That wasn't really a question. I just had to get that one in there.
But I've heard different people's. I'm sweating like and then fill in the blank, and there's all kinds of different things. But pig is definitely the most common one I think you hear used
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, and they just don't. So next time someone says that to you, please point out to them pigs do not sweat. And you can, because next time you just wait to pounce with that fact.
Yeah.
You just got to pounce on them. Okay. So there is apparently a Lego bridge. Into what country is that Lego bridge resigned? Made of Legos that you walk across.
Norway.
It's not a bad guess. It's pretty damn good. Anybody else want to guess? It is in Germany.
Yeah.
It's really cool looking. Okay. What animal? And I'm giving half of it away. That's the hint. Who or what is behind most of the power outages in the U.S.?
So be an animal. I would say.
What animal is behind most of the power outages in the U.S.?
A squirrel.
Yeah, you're right. Squirrel. It's kind of crazy. I don't think those squirrels live to tell that tale, do they? They're causing a power outage.
No.
All right. What were bandages made out of in ancient times? What did they make bandages out of? So, I mean, think about it. They didn't. I mean, we did have cloth, right? So that could be your guess. But what did they make bandages out of in ancient times?
Bandages, probably woven hair.
Woven hair. That's a good guess. They actually used, be ready for this, going to gross you out, spider webs.
Oh.
That's what were used for bandages in ancient times, because apparently they used bandages because the spider web supposedly had natural antiseptic and antifungal properties, which kept wounds clean and prevented infection.
You get enough of them wadded up, there's probably some gauze type soaking ability, I suppose.
Also, spider webs contain vitamin K, which helps promote clotting. So they knew what the hell they were doing.
Yeah, it makes you wonder how many attempts at. I mean, they had no way of testing, the understanding of vitamins and references like that. So you're talking about just pulling different natural resources from your environment and trying until you find something that works.
Right. So people would go around and collect, spider webs and gather them up into these pads. And then they would apply that to your wound, and that was the bandage. Wow. So I just thought, brilliant. So if you're ever caught without bandages,
there you go.
You know what to do. All right. First sunglasses, right? Why were they designed? Why were the first sunglasses designed? Why? What was the reason?
I'm trying to think back how old of a reference I can remember of somebody wearing sunglasses. I would say.
Yeah, what's the reason, Mary? Why were sunglasses invented? What is the reason? Mary R says the sun. Grasshopper says snow blindness.
That's pretty good right there. I like the snow blindness.
With that? Okay. The first sunglasses were designed for Chinese judges to hide their facial expressions in court.
Really?
So for legal reasons. Yep. That's where the first sunglasses were developed. Nothing to do with the sun, just to hide their expressions.
It's interesting because there are a few times that I'll put on sunglasses to hide my facial expression.
Yeah, playing poker. Yep.
I don't want people to see me rolling my eyes at them.
So there you go. There, you would never, one would ever think of it. So, who invented cotton candy?
Who invented it?
Yeah, cotton candy.
Oh, well,
Who?
it's got to
And
be somebody that's
Who? What?
recognizable.
Yeah, who, what, where, why?
Hmm.
Even the year. There's all sorts of questions in this.
It's going to be
We've
somebody who's better known for inventing something more popular, I'm guessing. So,
Okay, so it was invented. What do you do? Take a guess of the year. Hurry up, Jeff. Just first impression. Go.
1918.
Go. Okay, it was invented in 1897
Wow.
by a dentist of all people, right? Because you know, cotton candy is pure sugar. It was invented by a dentist named William Morrison. He was a confectioner, and confectioner John C. Wharton, who invented the machine that spun the cotton candy.
Yeah.
So they worked together, and it was all introduced in the 1904 World's Fair.
Interesting.
And they called it fairy floss.
Very fun.
And then another dentist reinvented the machine in 1921 and came up with the name cotton candy, which replaced fairy floss. So there you go.
That's interesting. It was a dentist
Yep.
who created it.
Yep. And now we're going to zip into a whole nother area. How long would it take you to get in your car? You're getting your car, just the way it is, fully equipped, just your normal everyday car to drive to the moon. Drive
to the moon.
How long would it take you to drive to the moon?
I'm not going to pull out my calculator either. I'm going to say, oh boy, this is going to be 180,000 years.
Okay. 180,000 years. It's only 250,000 miles away.
Oh, okay.
250,000.
Well,
okay. But it would only take you 1 hour to get to space.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you can, obviously, if you're going 70 miles an hour, say 60 miles an hour,
well, I'd do
it would take you 250,000 hours approximately.
250,000.
So divide that by 40. Or no. Yeah. Divide that by, I can't think today.
That'd be approximately 80,000.
Yeah, divide that by, what would we want to do? Okay, if that's
8,
hours. Divide that by 8, and that would give us days, I guess. Yeah, you divide it by, no, not day. 24. 250,000 divided by 24. I don't know the answer. We got to do it. 250,000 divided by 24 would be about 10,000. So it would take you about 10,000 days. 10,000 days, there's 365 in a year, right? So there's, I'm trying to do this in my damn head. 365 days in a year.
So take about 20
X amount of years.
Take about 25
10
years, maybe.
Yeah, 10 years, 20, little over 20 years. To drive to the moon, going 60 miles an hour.
Yeah, I'd go a lot faster.
Isn't that weird?
I mean, who's going to pull you
Just
over?
think about that. Get in your car and going to the moon. It'd be a 20-year journey. In your Ford Expedition or whatever the hell you drive, Jeff. So.
Yeah, well, it's not a Ford Expedition.
All right.
Yeah, it wouldn't.
All right. So now we're gonna come back to Earth. How much do clouds weigh? What's an average cloud weigh?
Oh, they're heavy.
Something nobody thinks about because they're floating in the air. Yeah. Nobody thinks about this.
Well, what's a gallon of...
Next time you look up and see a cloud, I want you to think about this.
I mean, it would certainly depend on the size of the cloud, but big storm front type clouds, they've got to be able to weigh thousands of tons, wouldn't they? I mean, if you look at how much water weighs and how much water one could hold, at least it's got to be at least 50 tons for a really big storm front type cloud.
Well, just an average cloud weighs 1.1 million pounds.
Okay.
Think about that. So these things that you just see, oh, that fluffy cloud, it weighs 1 million pounds. Because that's the
I mean, water ain't light.
It's heavy. No. Nope. All you do is take see, the number is calculated by taking the water density of a cloud and multiplying it by its volume. And fortunately, the cloud can still float at that weight because the air below, believe it or not, is heavier. Air is not light. People think air is light. It ain't. Air pressure is a real deal. That's a real deal. Okay. Let's see here. What state's home to the rare pink dolphin?
Pink dolphins. Got to be where there's krill. I would
should look at
say,
chat here.
well, it's got probably Hawaii. I don't know.
It's Louisiana.
Really? I was going to say, at first I was thinking it's got to be someplace where there's a lot of krill, where you see like flamingos and other things taking on a tint because of the diet, right? But is that what causes them to be pink?
I don't know. It could be the shrimp.
Could be.
Could be krill or whatever. Well, krill are pretty much sea monkeys, I guess.
Yeah.
That's a sea monkey, is a krill.
Yeah, that red krill.
They're brine shrimp.
What turns flamingos
krill are
pink,
brine shrimp, and I believe a sea monkey is a brine shrimp. So there you go. Okay. Did you know, and I've never seen one, but you know there can be such a thing as a moonbow. It's like a rainbow. It happens for moonshine. And it's a rare thing, but a real thing.
Often seen at sea? Probably more than land?
I don't know. I just learned
I can see that. I know that there's been a lot of recordings of people, of sailors who say when they've seen the moon on the horizon, they mistaken it for a ship that's on fire. So I could see where maybe at sea.
Can you throw Danny Staten's put his chat up there? I love it. I love it. I'm thinking of starting to drink earlier today for some reason.
We may have already beat you to that, Danny. I'm not sure yet.
Oh my God. Okay. Yeah. So my heart was broken when I found out sea monkeys when I was a kid were just brine shrimp. I went, oh.
You were looking at the ads.
I thought they were primates.
Book. You're gonna order them.
Sure. I thought they were primates.
I was always tempted to try to order those out of the comic book ads, and I never.
You never did? Oh my God.
Did.
They're so cool because
there's
certain animals that, can go, their eggs can go into complete suspended animation. They dry them out. They can live 1,000 years and you rehydrate them and they come alive.
Mm-hmm.
That's scary. Think about being dead for 1,000 years and then just being born again. Okay. Let's see here. The other thing I, of course, want to talk about is there is an animal that's so big that you can literally swim through its veins. That's freaky to think about that.
Yeah, that's
so this one's for you, Danny. I want you to think about swimming through an animal's veins today while you're having a cocktail. What animal could you swim through his veins?
It's got to be a whale. It's got to be some sort of a whale.
Yes, it's a whale, but what kind of whale?
I'm not much of the marine biologist. I wouldn't know. I don't know what the biggest whale is, to be honest.
Texas Jack got it. Blue whale. Yep, you can actually swim. Its veins are so big you can swim right through them.
Wow.
That gives you an example. Doesn't that give you a whole new perspective on size?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's when you get your perspective. And see, those are some of the tricks that I'm going to use in Legend Meets Science to get people's light bulbs to go off on all these cool evidence categories. Because one of my goals with LMS too is to get people to think and
Yeah.
to get them to realize things, and there's ways to do it. And that's not trying to brainwash people, but to give them a way where they can feel confident that they can do things on their own, that they can understand things on their own, even though it's going to be a lot of complex information. But that's just an example of how well you now realize a blue whale is.
Yeah, I think if you were to survey people and say, the veins of a blue whale, are they larger or smaller than the circumference of a basketball, let's say,
Right.
that the overwhelming majority would probably say smaller. I mean, not to say that they don't believe they're big, but imagining that they're that big or bigger, you're
Right.
talking about the size of a manhole cover to be able to move through them.
Oh, yeah. Plus, I mean, their heart alone is 1,300 pounds. Almost, you're pushing 3/4 of a ton. Just
Wow.
their heart. It's the size of a small car.
That's crazy.
Yep. Yeah, they just have enormous arteries, and so it's just it's really interesting. So blue whales get up to can be over 100 feet, and they get to weigh more than 100 tons. I almost said 100 pounds. 100 tons. So okay. So what else we got here? Probably nothing that interesting. Probably wind it up here. I'm just looking. I'm looking if I have anything. I wrote all this stuff up here. Well, I did learn one thing, that probably playing trivia is not necessarily the greatest topic for a podcast.
I love it.
Oh, you do?
My
Oh,
problem
okay.
is that you said I only needed to get like 20% chance of, in the range of being right. And even that, I think I only got there maybe on 2 of them. So, but
yeah, so okay, so
it.
I'm getting a call right now. I love it. I'm getting a call from Washington. This is Washington, D.C. calling. And I'm like, that's kind of like, they better leave a message.
Yeah.
I'll let him leave a message.
Doug's out of the office.
Yeah, it's it's like, oh, I'm sure it's somebody in the Senate. Who knows? Trying to think. Yeah, that's all I got. I don't have any more.
Well, who do you got on your show?
Oh,
Wednesday
we have
night?
Wednesday. We have Bob and Kathy Strain, or should I say Kathy and Bob Strain. And they are going to be discussing Area X and the Wood Ape Conservancy group.
Okay.
And we're going to try to dig deep into some new areas. I like to try to take people into some new areas, but that's who's going to be on Wednesday.
Tonight, I've got James Lady from Michigan Aboriginal joining me on Pine Island Research. And he's got some audio recordings we're going to play. I had James on my show last year before we started, bringing shows like mine into the Untold Radio Network. So it'll be fun to have him back now that we're here. He's a great guest. Usually has a great, the chat seems to get involved a lot. When you start playing data to consider, like audio recordings, I think everybody's got an interesting opinion. So
I like how Grasshopper goes, it's Jim Jordan calling with a subpoena.
Yeah.
Never know. Let's see here. I love some of the comments. I tried to give my sea monkeys commands, Danny, but come to find out they can't read. Okay. Oh, man. Well, thanks, Jeff, for having me on. Sorry my camera's not working today, but I'll get everything
That's all right.
back together. You have no idea. I have a pile that's like 2 feet high of camera gear and stuff, and it's just everything's in disarray.
I just figured you
Terrible.
didn't do your hair this morning. But...
Oh God, no! I like hats. I just know this. I'm going to like my office much better after I get it reorganized.
I kind of, I've been
Or my
looking at
studio.
my office thinking the same thing. It's just, this is a big commitment of time and energy. I look at my office and think, boy, if I moved the desk over there and did this and that, I could probably knock this out in an hour. And then you're sitting there 6 hours later.
Oh yeah, you think it's easy, but
like-
it's not. When you got to rewire everything,
you plug the computer back in and it's not booting up, and all the catastrophic things that can go wrong.
Yep, I may just end up sticking stuff back where it was. I don't know. So,
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you coming on.
yeah, no, it was fun, and thanks everybody, and I'll see everybody on the flip flop, I guess.
All righty.
All right, see you, Jeff. Bye.
And thank you to everybody who's joined us here in chat. I love the trivia thing. Actually, I thought it was kind of fun. And those who will be listening on podcast, once we upload it to all the podcast platforms here this afternoon, we've got 33 people watching. There's been 30 some people watching pretty much the whole time. So our live viewers, it's fun when we have something interactive like that. A lot of people who can chime in and share their wealth of knowledge that far exceeds mine, obviously, in the trivia challenge. Now I know how that was a firsthand account for me of how Alex feels on a weekly basis on Wednesday nights when Doug's like, hey, Alex, do you know whatever, and Alex is like, because Doug's a smart individual. And I appreciate his knowledge. But we will see everybody tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern on Pine Island Research. As I said, we'll have James Lady from Michigan Aboriginal on tonight. I'm looking forward to that. And until then, you guys take it easy and enjoy your Monday.